Lord and Savior Minarchy. No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
To the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show, where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From DC to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got the clout. Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel. He's breaking down the noise, cutting through the lies, shining light where the shadow hides. With guests in the mix.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
And welcome into the Wednesday, aka Chat Lives Matter Day edition of the Rick Robinson Show. Sorry, apparently, well, first of all, I've upgraded the studio because we can do something we couldn't do before. But even though I just finished a live broadcast, apparently they pushed an upgrade through while I was working, which probably explains why things went glitchy during the other live feed, because yeah, they've moved a bunch of stuff around, and I also apparently now have a peak meter when I'm talking on the screen, which I've never had before. So if anybody can hear me here in a second, let me know how I'm sounding, because I also think I tracked down another glitch that I've had for a while. But anyway, so we're here, we're live, it's Wednesday, Chat Lives Matter Day. which means it's one of my busiest days of the week, which means you're going to get to put up with me for, well, about 2 hours now, and then starting at about 6, about another 4 or 5, because, for those of you that are gluttons for punishment and stuff. But anyway, so we're here, we're live. I hope everybody's having a great Wednesday, and we have lots of stuff to talk about. So much stuff to talk about. Like, for one, look, politics is one thing. But there used to be a thing in this country where even if you disagreed with why something got started or how it got started, once bombs started falling, people used to get in line. Now, neither side, and I'm going to repeat this, neither side has done that for the last few administrations, but the Republicans still eventually kind of got on board with a lot of it, even when the Democrats were doing it. Now, of course, they hemmed and hawed, and everybody always screams when it's the other side's turn, you can't do this without going to Congress first. Well, actually, yes, the War Powers Act says they can. And I don't like that any more than you do, to be honest, but it's there, and they use it, and they've been using it quite well. And, if you remember, in, I think it was 2011-ish, Nancy Pelosi basically said, no, Barack Obama didn't actually have to go to Congress because, War Powers Act, 1973. And on the face of it, it's not wrong. The president can order limited actions for up to 60 days with a 30-day extension to either complete something or to start the drawdown process if it hasn't been completed before then. So despite what the Democrats are telling you, despite all their hand-wringing, and I know the Republicans do it just as much when it's the Democrats that are dropping the bombs. But despite what the left is trying to tell you, this is not an illegal action. It is also not a you struck them before you did it first thing. No, this regime that is being systematically decimated, might I add you, has been attacking us both directly and indirectly since 1979? Now, again, if you've done the story, or if you've done your research and listened to shows like this one, and a few others that are out there, then you know that some of this is our fault. We did this to ourselves, but there are reasons that a lot of people don't know. So what happened was in 1953, Iran held an election, a prime minister was elected, who then decided that, much like Venezuela, he was going to start the process to nationalize their oil industry, which pissed Britain off because the company that is now known as BP, or British Petroleum, at the time was the one doing the legwork, getting them up and running with their wells, etc. And they're like, no, you're not taking this away from us. Then let's also not forget, again, this is 1953, so we're talking less than a decade since World War II ended. And we, as a country, were already like, well, we've already had to deal with one socialist crackhead popping up, so maybe we need to try to do something about this one. And they did. And since then, we have meddled in their affairs. And there were a lot of folks that didn't like that. And then the commies and the Islamists got together and said, we can do this, and then everybody can just, kick rocks. The scariest thing is, if you know anything about Persian history, they developed our number system. A lot of folks don't know that unless you've actually paid attention in school. We still use their numbering system. A lot of the mathematics that we take for granted today, they invented. But ever since 1979, they've gone back to the 7th century. Which is why, for those of you that are paying attention, you can see, and I've got plenty of video footage that we'll be playing today, but one of them that I found the most interesting, and we'll be playing here in just a second once I get it queued up, was the fact that these people that live in Iran are basically in the hills watching the Islamic regime get decimated, and they're laughing about it. And all around the world, Iranian and Israelis are dancing in the streets together. These are things that we were told were never going to be possible because these two groups of people, Islamists and Jews, hate one another. Apparently, it's only one particular sect of Islam that really, really hates the Jews. Because, I'm just saying. because the Persian sect doesn't seem to mind him very much. Which is, again, something else that we've been told was never going to possibly ever be able to be a thing. So, again, like I said, I have plenty of stuff to talk about today. I want to welcome folks that may be checking us out for the first time from over at Pickaxe. Jeff Dornick and I have been kind of cross-promoting for a while, and I did find out today that Pickaxe is officially on the App Store. It's been on the Google Play Store for a while. For some reason, it took a while to get put onto the App Store, but it is there. So I actually said hello to Pickaxe from my iPhone right before I went on the air. All right, so let's get started here. So, like I said, we've got lots of clips today, so it'll take me a second to get everything squared away because I was testing out some of the new stuff on a newsfeed stream and then kind of forgot to set all this up. So, one moment, please. All right, here we go.
Now that the game has started and the blitz is on, they don't know what plays to call, let alone how to get in the huddle and call those plays. Iran's senior leaders are dead. The so-called governing council that might have selected a successor, dead, missing, or cowering in bunkers, too terrified to even occupy the same room. Senior generals, mid-level officers, enlisted ranks, they can't talk or communicate, let alone mount a coordinated and sustained offensive. That's not great for morale. The Iranian Air Force is no more, built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. Now that the game has started and the blitz is on, they don't know what plays to call, let alone how to get in the huddle and call those plays. Iran's senior leaders are dead. The so-called governing council that might have selected a successor, dead, missing, or cowering in bunkers, too terrified to even occupy the same room. Senior generals, mid-level officers, enlisted ranks, they can't talk or communicate, let alone mount a coordinated and sustained offensive. That's not great for morale. The Iranian Air Force is no more, built for 1996, destroyed in 2026. The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. Now that the game has started.
All right, sir, I was dealing with something behind the scenes, so that one played through a couple of times, but I actually wanted to let you guys hear that anyway, because look, some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today is absolutely huge, and I'm not trying to make light of it or anything else. I'm simply telling you, it really is a huge thing that we find ourselves with, because despite what the left is telling you, this operation is going much more smoothly than anybody thought possible. Let's not forget that Iran, we thought, was the unstoppable enemy. Because a lot of the leadership wouldn't listen to the Iranian people saying, we don't want this. We didn't want this to begin with, but we were left with no choice. So we're going to keep... Hang on, let me fix something here because I just realized I was in such a hurry to do that. I did something wrong. So let me get this fixed 1 second. Okay, this one is not very long, but it made me laugh. So yes, we're playing it again. Or we're playing it anyway. So one moment, please.
Rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. In fact, last night, we sunk their prize ship, the Soleimani. Looks like POTUS got him twice. Their Navy, not a factor. Pick your adjective, it is no more. In fact, yesterday, in the Indian Ocean, and we'll play it on the screen there, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death. He rests at the bottom of the Persian.
Now, I would like to point out this is the first time since World War II that an enemy vessel has been sunk by a torpedo. Gotta be a kick-ass torpedo, because apparently it only took one. So our torpedo game must have gotten elevated, because I remember in World War II half the time it took two or I wasn't there, but I played a lot of simulators, and it seemed like it always took 2 or 3 torpedoes to sink ships. And back then, based on the simulators that I was playing, yes, I was that kind of nerd. I spent most of my time playing military simulator games on the computer. But anyway, all right. So there's that one, and then let's see what else we can get into here. So let's take a quick scan around the headlines, since I had been paying attention to the. All right, so we got to talk about this. So in case you missed it, there were elections last night in Texas, and yeah. So here's the thing. So everybody get ready to wave bye-bye to Jazzy Jazz Hands Slavy Crockett, because yeah, she lost last night, and she lost bigly. There's not even going to be a runoff. She's just gone. So State Rep James Tallarico won the Democratic state primary election on Tuesday night amid a wave of voter confusion in Rep Jasmine Crockett's Texas 30 district. The snafu raised questions about how the county runs its elections, with some questioning the outcome. And of course, we have this, because, how can they not? Hang on. The karma and the irony of what I'm about to play to you right now is absolutely delicious. Absolutely delicious, because they're the first ones that always tell, oh, there's no cheating. No. Watch this. Watch. You ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Encourage each and every one of you to remain resilient. We cannot allow this type of behavior to be rewarded, because so long as they know that they can win, even if it means cheating, then they will continue to do it. So I am asking you, I am begging you to make sure that you go ahead and figure out where it is that you are supposed to vote, stand in line, wait in line.
All right, so from Jasmine Crockett herself, I have it on good authority that cheating in elections is not a thing. It's nothing we're supposed to worry about. Sounds like Jasmine Crockett might actually be on board for the whole, Save America plan now, maybe. Wonder if when that comes to a vote now, if she'll vote for it. I wonder. Because it's funny how it's never cheating until they lose. You ever notice that? And both sides. Again, I'm not picking sides here, because both sides are really bad about that. I will say that, in my opinion, and I've said this for a long time, with the number of voters that evaporated between the 2020 election and the 2024 election, I am fairly certain there was some sort of shenanigans going on. But yeah, so all right. I don't know if this is legit or not, but we're gonna play it anyway. So many things on social media anymore, but I just want to play this because this is one of the things that they're claiming. So hang on. All right, and here we go. Well, maybe. All right, hang on. I'm going to have to get... I knew it was going to do this to me eventually. It always does.
Real-life voter suppression in Dallas County today at Harry Stone Recreation Center. I want to make it very clear that Harry Stone Recreation Center nor staff had anything to do with what I witnessed. This is solely an issue with the Board of Elections, I believe. I was told by the poll workers that they were informed when they showed up to work the poll this morning that the location that they were at had been changed on the same day from being a location where both Democratic and Republican primaries could be voted on to a Republican-only location. The voters nor the workers were notified of this change prior to arriving at the recreation center to vote. The poll worker let me know that about 50% of the people who came to vote were not Republican only and had to be turned away. And so the chances of those Democratic primary voters going back to find another location to vote are slim to none. This whole thing is so shady.
I mean, like I said, I don't know how accurate that is, but if that's true, then I guess Jasmine, or I'm sorry, Slavey Crockett may have a reason to complain, but still. So let's take a look at the rest of the article here, see if they get to the bottom of any of this at all. So a state district judge granted an emergency order extending Democratic primary voting hours to 9 p.m. instead of 7 p.m. Ballots cast after 7 p.m. would be treated as provisional. But Republican state officials escalated the matter to the Texas Supreme Court, which issued a stay on the lower court ruling and ordered that votes cast by voters who were not in line to vote at 7 p.m. should be separated. The mandamus petition is still pending, which leaves the separated ballots unresolved. Still, this mishap does not appear to have influenced the actual outcome of the election. With 92.3% of expected ballots counted statewide, Tallarico led Crockett by 1,188,253 votes to 1,034,096 votes, or 52.8% to 45.9%, according to NBC News results. The margin of about 154,000 votes is too large of a gap to make a difference. To put it simply, even if Crockett won 100% of these votes, Tallarico would still be the nominee. Yeah, so I don't know what happened because I actually have a friend who works in Texas elections now, and I have not heard anything about that. So I don't know if maybe that was just a specific Dallas County issue. If somebody was just deciding they were done with jazz hands, maybe that's it. I don't really know. But anyway, all right. So we're going to get ready to take the break because I still haven't been able to push or promote anything yet because we were coming in kind of hot from the other stuff. So give me just a second because I need to check something else out too because I have not been able to do something that I need to do. So hang on. Hey, we do have extended now. Haha, that's going to make my life easier after this broadcast. I wasn't sure about that, but all right. So yeah, lots of things were changed on me today, so I'm still trying to figure some things out. So I apologize in advance. This one may be a little rougher than average, but we'll get through it together because that's just kind of what we do. All right, so hang on a second while I grab what I was looking for here. All right, so because of the operations going on in Iran today, and because I'm not a raging communist bastard, we're going to play a song that I helped write and produce for our troops that I usually just play on Fridays, but it's going to play a bit today too. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Make sure that, yep, that's the right one. Should be anyway.
Before the oath was spoken out loud, before you stood apart from the crowd, there was a moment, quiet and clear, when you chose to stand while others stayed here. You raised your hand with a steady resolve, knowing some nights don't end when the mission's done. Not for glory, not for the pay, but for something worth more than walking away.
Only hold the line.
They carried the weight where the roads ran long, through dust and heat
when the days went on,
holding ground mile after mile, doing the work that rarely drew a smile. They stood their post when relief ran late, shoulders squared under the pull of fate.
Not chasing headlines, not asking why, just staying put when others pass by. We stand and watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
We stand watch over the deep. They kept their watch where the water turns black, miles from shore with no quick way back, measuring time by the rise and the fall, answering duty's unrelenting call. Through silent hours and endless seas, they stood their post in the cold night breeze, guarding the lanes the world depends on, so others slept and the light stayed on. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to. Simplify, Marine.
We go where we're sent. We go where we're sent.
They moved as one when the moment came, side by side through fire and rain. First to step where the ground was thin, not for the odds but for the ones beside them.
Trust was earned in the hard way through, every promise carried by the few. No turning back once the line was crossed.
They stood shoulder to shoulder as brothers,
never counting the cost. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days.
one old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to. Air Force,
the sky is our domain.
Air Force,
the sky is our domain.
they held their focus where seconds seem eternal, soaring between clouds and blue. Every movement measured and true, knowing what one clean moment could do.
They watch the whole while guarding the small, every mission tied to a larger call. Calm under pressure, steady and clear, keeping the promise from far overhead.
Space Force,
we guard the dark without
they
faith,
keep their vigil
where silence reigns,
beyond the weather,
beyond the rain.
watching the paths that the world relies on, long before the warning lights come on.
Cloud, no banners, no clear view,
just constant care in a canvas full of stars,
standing the watch through the endless night,
guarding the systems that keep us in light. While the watch is kept and the lines hold fast, there are lives still moving on the other side of that.
empty chairs and quiet phones, long goodbyes that don't feel done.
Names we carry but never say, folded flags and debts we pay. Every service, every scar reaches farther than the uniform ever could.
Coast Guard, we come when it matters most.
They launch into storms when hope feels thin, turning back isn't an option then. Hands reach out where the waters rise, pulling lives back from the edge of time. No headlines waiting when the call is done. Just breathing restored and another life won. Every rescue, every return, a quiet promise kept in the worst conditions. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One oath spoken, carried through, wherever duty calls us to. For the ones who raised the right hand high, swore the oath and didn't ask us why. For the nights you stood where freedom cost, we remember, we honor, we won't forget the loss. From the ground to the sea, to the open sky, to the guardians above where the silent stars fly. Every branch, every badge, every battle scar, because you stood, we live free. Lord, each know we stand here freely because others stood before us. We accept the weight of what was given and the cost that came with it. We promise to remember those who serve, those who stand watch still, and those who never came home.
And welcome back into the Wednesday edition of the Rick Robinson Show, as you're live on KLRradio.com. I apologize for missing you guys on Monday, but I was helping a friend deal with some situations. But we're back now. We're live, and there's plenty of things to discuss. So let's see what else we've got on tap here. Give me just 1 second. Oh, that was not what I meant to do. My bad. Let me fix that because I clicked on the wrong thing. Anyway, should fix it in a second, hopefully, maybe. There we go. Maybe. All right. So there's my ugly mug back while I fix something. Haha. Some of you are like, no, take it off. I'm sorry. I've warned you guys for years that I had a face made for radio, and none of you wanted to believe. You should start doing video. Everybody does video. Now you bet you wish I hadn't started, huh? Okay. So let's see what else we got here. All right. So we got to talk about this because I talked about this at the opening of the program. I need you guys to understand what I'm about to show you. This is video captured of one of the bombings from Iran, and just pay attention. It's important. Now, the first thing that I would like to point out is this. One, it looks like War Secretary Pete Hegseth was not exaggerating when he said things were about to pick up, because this is actually footage from last night. The other thing that I wanted to point out, in the background, you heard repeatedly people laughing while they were watching the bombs explode in Iran. These are Iranian people watching their government and their militant arm that has kept them under thumb for 47 years be decimated, and they are absolutely loving every minute of it, and they should be. And they should be. This is how detached from everything the left is in America. And it's not just America. Like, I saw a video earlier today of counter-protests and protests going on in, I guess, the United Kingdom. And there were Irish folk trying to tell actual Iranians what was happening in Iran while they're celebrating the death of the Ayatollah. What are we on? Ayatollah number 3? I know I saw a story that I couldn't confirm last night that the Ayatollah number 3 might have already been sent to meet Allah, but I wasn't able to confirm that, so I don't know. But I figure it's only a matter of time. Because one of the things that has happened quite substantially since the last time we tried anything of this magnitude in the Middle East is and this was a masterful move by Trump, I have to admit, by separating out the stuff with the Space Force, which for right now primarily deals with satellites, etc. By separating that out and making it its own unique branch of the military. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still think that there's some SG-1 style stuff going on that they don't want us to know about yet, but that's just me being hopeful. But, so an interesting thing keeps happening, because, so what happens is, the reason we've been slowly just removing Iran's IRG's ability to do anything is, so what happens is they wheel these missile launchers out of caves, etc., and they fire off a shot, and then they push it back inside a cave or put it back down inside its hidey hole, and then our satellites, thanks to our Space Force boys and girls, pick up the heat signature, lock the coordinates in, and then they send the JDAMs in. And boom, 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 Bob's your uncle, one less missile launcher every time you turn around. Which is why you'll notice that the folks that do these briefings have been telling you this stuff, their command and control has already been decimated. Their ability to launch missiles is being decimated. But then on top of all of that, if there wasn't enough goodness, let's not forget, Slavey Crockett is on her way out the door. The woman who, because she had such a large social media following, thought she should be top of the food chain in Congress, just had her district taken away from her and has now lost her primary bid for Texas senator. Now, if Texas is dumb enough to elect Timu Beto, then I guess you guys get what you paid for. But but here's the thing, and I said this yesterday. I've said this a lot over the last couple of days. What pains me the most about what we're watching happen in Iran today, and what we're watching happen, especially with Iranian women around the world today, is realizing that actual feminism, the feminism that mattered, the feminism that inspired change, that made so many things possible, doesn't exist in America anymore. We've taken it, we've perverted it, and now it's all about giving transgender women, the ability to bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan. But they already could do that because they were dudes, and they still are. So I really don't understand where we're going with that. But watching all of these women crying tears of joy because they can take their hijabs off and dancing in the streets to the news that the Ayatollah has been sent to meet his Virgils. I said what I said. All of it is pretty damned astounding to me. It really is. It really is. because I never thought I'd see this. I mean, I was only 6 when the hostage situation happened in Iran. So I wasn't really old enough to understand all of it. And I said this last night. I could see the fear on my parents' faces, but I also knew enough to know that it was way, way, way far away from us, and I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. But then Reagan got elected, and everybody assumed that we would go in and just clean their clocks, and we didn't. And then Reagan got elected again. And everybody's like, okay, second term, so we're finally going to go get these bastards. Didn't happen. Bush 41 got in. Didn't happen. Clinton got in. Obviously, didn't happen. He was too busy lobbing cruise missiles at aspirin factories to try to distract from the fact that he was being impeached for doing improper things with a staffer. And then... Sorry. Had to be done. And no, dude, I still don't know where your car's at. Don't ask me. But anyway. And then Bush 43 got in office. And that's when we were pretty sure that, things were going to, maybe finally. And then World Trade Center happened. And everybody's like, ooh, it was Afghanistan. It was this dude. It was this dude. And I'm like, he's got ties to Iran, right? You know that, right? Right? And then we didn't. And then under Obama, who came next? For 2 terms, we still had people fighting things out in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we had people that were on the ground sending information up to the leadership saying, these bombs and missiles that are being thrown at us are manufactured in Iran, right? And Obama did nothing. And then Trump got into office. And we thought, well, for sure this time, because the thing about Trump, like him or hate him, he's been consistent about Iran for as long as he's been a public figure. Everything that I can ever find that he said about Iran is basically one simple sentence. They can never be allowed to get a nuclear weapon. So he's been consistent. He's probably the only political figure in my lifetime that has been consistent, even if it's just on that one thing about Iran can never get a nuclear weapon. And he campaigned on it the first time. And he campaigned on it the second time. And he flat out told him, while Joe Biden was like, don't, and Kamala Harris was like, don't, I'm going to kick the shit out of them. Because they've been coming after us for 47 years. So the leftist argument, in my humble opinion, the leftist argument that we started this war is bullshit. I mean, unless you want to go all the way back to 53 when we started meddling, then I could kind of see your point. But after 79, we basically left them alone for the most part. Because we didn't really know what else to do. Because we knew, especially then, because they had become an ally of Russia pretty much overnight. They became an ally of China pretty much overnight. And we're talking about those 2 countries and even pretty much Iran in its peak time frame. Because if anything, what this has shown me is we have been afraid of these people for all the wrong reasons. Like China keeps insinuating themselves as some sort of superpower when it comes to technology, and we have now embarrassed them on the world stage twice based on their technology. Because our folks just keep going through their missile defenses like they're not even there. They did it with Maduro, and now they've done it in Iran. So, and the funny thing is, and he'll probably hear this and bring it up later tonight when we do a show together, I remember a couple of years ago when the Amish one kept trying to tell me that Iran and Russia were basically just paper tigers now, and I'm like, you're insane. Because I was listening to all the generals that were like, they have millions of people, and they have this, and they have that, and if we ever go against them directly, we're going to lose, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? We're not losing. So far. Now, I will say this. As much as I laughed at Hexet's comment today about it looks like Trump POTUS got him twice, I'm like, dude, we're drifting into cocky territory. I don't really know how I feel about us living in cocky territory. I just don't. But here we are nonetheless. All right, so let's see what else we can find as far as news updates, because it's been a minute. Looks like. Did they send in B-52s, really? Oh, wow. All right, so this is from Ward Clark. Actually just came out about 5 minutes ago. So the B-52 Stratofortress bomber, often affectionately referred to as the Big Ugly Fat Fellow, or Buff, is an aircraft whose design history begins at the end of World War II. The first B-52 bombers were delivered to the United States Air Force in the early 1950s, and the newer marks of that magnificent warbird are still flying today. There's a good reason for the long service of this wonderful warbird, and I'm going to take a moment to plug a set of books. If you have not read Dale Brown's books about the B-52 and the super upgraded platform that was in that book that was based on a B-52 design, you really should. Those were really good books. Anyway, it may not be as slick, as fast, or as fancy as newer aircraft, but if you need a few dozen square miles of countryside destroyed and you need it destroyed right now, the Buff can get that done. Now, Operation Epic Fury, that process of reducing the Iranian theocracy to a cautionary tale in the history books, is seeing the Buff in and around Iranian skies. On Tuesday, U.S. Central Command confirmed on X that an armada of B-52s, nicknamed Stratosaurus for its advanced years, was used in a strike against ballistic missile and command control post. The B-52H is capable of flying high subsonic speeds at altitudes of up to 50,000 feet. It can carry nuclear or precision-guided conventional ordnance, and it has a payload of approximately 70,000 pounds of mixed ordnance, bombs, mines, and missiles, according to the Air Force. CENTCOM at this time has confirmed that the B-52 is included in the asset list for Operation Epic Fury. So why does this matter? Here's why. Iran started this conflict with a significant air defense capacity. Not the newest and not the best, but it was there. One of the first missions Allied aircraft had was reducing those air defenses and gaining air superiority so that the primary mission of locating and unaliving regime goblins could continue without distraction. How was that done exactly? First, we sent in the B-2s. The B-2 is as good as invisible. It's the real-world version of Wonder Woman's invisible jet. Just as in Operation Midnight Hammer, the Iranians at the outset of Operation Epic Fury never had any idea that the spirits were around until everything around them started exploding. Next, we sent in the B-1s, or Bones. The Bone isn't invisible. What it is faster than a greased weasel, dodging an owl. They can run at high Mach numbers and make for a very challenging target. Now, we're using the Buffs. The B-52, wonderful though it is about as stealthy as a D9 Caterpillar driving over a pile of wrecked cars. It's slow. It has the radar cross-section of New Zealand and the infrared signature of an erupting volcano. Its use in and around Iran means one main thing. The Iranians have nothing left with which to shoot at them. As the Republican Guard, or the Iraqi Republican Guard, learned to their everlasting sorrow in 1991, the last thing anyone with hostile intentions to the United States wants to see 50,000 feet overhead is the distinctive profile of a flight of Buffs. It is a sure sign that one is about to have a very, very horrible, terrible, no good, very bad day. The Buff can carry standoff weapons, including cruise missiles, and I've even heard rumors that they have been adapted to launch drones, but the main thing the Buff has going for it is a big, big bomb load. Each Buff can carry 51 750-pound iron bombs. That's a lot of boom for your buck, and a bit of bang to go with it. And now some Iranian goblins are finding out, like the Iraqi Republican Guard and the North Vietnamese army before them, that arc light means never having to say you're sorry. Okay, so I did read a lot of what Ward wrote on that, so I'm going to put it out on my X feed just so hopefully some other folks will read it, since I just took a lot of his material. But dude, it was awesome. All right, so let's see what other trouble we can get into real quick. Like, dude, we're already almost through hour one. That just doesn't seem possible. All right, well, since I basically hot bunked into this, we're going to go ahead and take another break, since we're already pretty much at the top of the hour anyway, so I can take care of a couple things. And we'll be right back. I see some folks starting to chat in, so I'll get caught up on that in a minute. Looks like most of you are coming in from YouTube, so you're probably going to be trolling me. But that's all right. I can take it. I'll be right back.
Before the oath was spoken out loud, before you stood apart from the crowd, there was a moment, quiet and clear, when you chose to stand while others stayed here. You raised your hand with a steady resolve, knowing some nights don't end when the mission's done. Not for glory, not for the pay, but for something worth more than walking away.
Only hold the line.
They carried the weight where the roads ran long, through dust and heat
when the days went on,
holding ground mile after mile, doing the work that rarely drew a smile. They stood their post when relief ran late, shoulders squared under the pull of fate.
Not chasing headlines, not asking why, just staying put when others pass by. We stand and watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
We stand watch over the deep. They kept their watch where the water turns black, miles from shore with no quick way back, measuring time by the rise and the fall, answering duty's unrelenting call. Through silent hours and endless seas, they stood their post in the cold night breeze, guarding the lanes the world depends on, so others slept and the light stayed on. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to. Simplify Marine.
We go where we're sent. We go where we're sent.
They moved as one when the moment came, side by side through fire and rain. First to step where the ground was thin, not for the odds but for the ones beside them.
Trust was earned in the hard way through, every promise carried by the few. No turning back once the line was crossed.
They stood shoulder to shoulder as brothers,
never counting the cost. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One old spoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to.
Air Force,
the sky is our domain.
Air Force,
the sky is our domain.
They held their focus where seconds seem eternal, soaring between clouds and blue. Every movement measured and true, knowing what one clean moment could do.
They watch the whole while guarding the small. Every mission tied to a larger call. Calm under pressure, steady and clear, keeping the promise from far overhead.
Space Force,
we guard the dark without
they
faith.
keep their vigil
Where silence reigns,
beyond the weather,
beyond the rain.
watching the paths that the world relies on, long before the warning lights come on.
Cloud, no banners, no clear view,
just constant care in a canvas full of stars.
standing the watch through the endless night,
Guarding the systems that keep us in light. While the watch is kept and the lines hold fast, there are lives still moving on the other side of that.
empty chairs and quiet phones, long goodbyes that don't feel done.
Names we carry but never say, folded flags and debts we pay. Every service, every scar reaches farther than the uniform ever could.
Coast Guard, we come when it matters most.
They launch into storms when hope feels thin. Turning back isn't an option then. Hands reach out where the waters rise, pulling lives back from the edge of time. No headlines waiting when the call is done, just breathing restored and another life won. Every rescue, every return, a quiet promise kept in the worst conditions. We stand the watch in different ways, different nights, the same long days. One unspoken carried through, wherever duty calls us to. For the ones who raised the right hand high,
Swore the oath and didn't ask us why.
for the nights you stood where freedom cost.
We remember, we honor, we won't forget the loss.
From the ground to the sea, to the open sky, to the guardians above where the silent stars fly. Every branch, every badge, every battle scar, because you stood.
We live free.
Lord, each know
We stand here freely.
because others stood before us. We accept the weight of what was given and the cost that came with it. We promise to remember those who serve, those who stand watch still, and those who never came home.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRN Radio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at klrnradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRN.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Red dirt roads to the Capitol steps. Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show, where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From D.C. to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got the crowd. Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel. He's breaking down the noise, cutting through the lies, shining light where the shadow hides. With guests in the mix and callers on cue, he's a voice.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
And welcome back into hour 2 of the Rick Robinson Show. Chat Live Matter Day edition coming to you live. Don't forget I'll be back tonight. Starting from pushing buttons for the Inquiry Crew at 7 p.m. Eastern. Pushing buttons for the Conservative Curmudgeon Radio Show at 8 p.m. Eastern. Simulcasting our friends over behind enemy lines. And possibly joining them, if I get an invite, at 9 p.m. Eastern. Then followed by Rick and Odie at 10 p.m. Eastern, which is myself and the Amish one, and then after that we'll head over into SHR Media Territory for Edge of Liberty Radio for our closing act for the night. And then tomorrow I am off during the day, so make sure you head over to SHR Media's YouTube channel and hang out with the Mission Minimum briefing hosted by none other than Earl Jackson in this time slot. And and then tomorrow night back with hopefully Jim and Rick. And then Friday, back doing this at noon. Friday afternoon, Weekend Roundup, 3 p.m. Eastern with the usual mysteries. And then He Said, She Said should be back. Aggie's back. So we're going to do that at 8:30 Eastern on Friday. And then Juxtaposition on Saturday at 10. Because, yes. Did I mention, hi, my name is Rick Robinson. I'm a workaholic. My last meeting was forever ago. Alright, so, okay, so we gotta play this. So, if you feel as much like I do that you're kind of living in this twilight zone, because it's weird, because all these Middle Eastern countries that everybody told us, they hated us, now that we're going after Iran, they're joining in. But it's not just that. So the grassroots stuff that's happening in Iran is absolutely amazing too. So I'm going to put this up on the screen, and then I'm going to embiggen it for a moment, because that way, for those of you that are watching on the little screens, you can see it better. Doesn't run for that long, but it's still pretty cool. So here we go.
Transformally supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei is dead. Ayatollah Khamenei is dead. Ayatollah Khamenei is dead. Iran's former supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. Iran's former supreme leader, supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
Alright, so I'm not playing all of it again, but so in case you couldn't read the caption, I'm going to back it up and put that back on the screen. So this is an Iranian DJ who released a dance remix of Trump declaring Ayatollah Khamenei is dead. So look, say what you want, folks. The simple fact of the matter is, as usual of late, the left is on the wrong side of history yet again. They have been embracing mental illness and amplifying it. They have been telling you that you're wrong for believing in science until it's science that suits their purposes. And then if you don't follow along with that science, then you are a hypocrite and an infidel and all of the above. But basic science like biology, that's malleable. That's not science fact. That's malleable. And look, the thing that the left never seems to understand about science is this. The whole idea of science is to push the boundaries of what it is that we believe and what it is that we understand. We do, as a society, now understand that there is a small percentage of folks that are born with additional chromosomes and sometimes additional body parts. And it's a thing. But that doesn't mean that we should be amplifying this to the point where, at its peak of the transgender, non-binary BS, at its peak, 50% of children between the ages of 12 and 18 were identifying as non-binary. Not because they actually were, in my humble opinion, but because it made them feel special. And they needed to be made to feel special. And that's the whole point of a lot of this stuff with the left. I've said this over and over and over again, and we're seeing it play out again today with what's happening in Iran. They want you living in your emotions. They want you hating Orange Man because he's bad, because he's terrible, because he's evil. Never mind the fact that almost everything that they have been telling you about Epstein files is wrong. If it wasn't, they would have used it years ago to take him out at the knees, because they would have only released the parts that pertain to him. And then done exactly what they're accusing Donald Trump of doing right now, and ran cover for everybody else. When you've got Bill Clinton, who said, hey, Trump and I used to talk a lot, and he never once talked about any of this with me. None of this ever came up. If they were both supposedly part of this super secret club, and both of them were afraid that they were about to get in trouble, do you really not think that one or the other probably would have brought it up in passing just to try to convince the other that it's either worse or better than they think? Do we not understand how human nature works? We do this with each other all the time. something sideways starts happening that you're going through with somebody else, and you're like, hey, let's slow down and talk about this for a second, because it helps edify you a little bit. You hope when you start bringing it up to other folks who either agree with you or disagree with you, and then you can go from there based on that. So the fact that he was the one who cut ties with Epstein, for whatever reason he cut ties with Epstein, and then eventually was one of the only ones, according to some of the victims' own attorneys, who tried to assist them with going after him, but because he's Donald Trump and because he's obviously the Antichrist, because a lot of you seem to believe that, by the way, and you really need to go check out The Last Kingdom and Country that I did. If you missed it live, you can check it out in all your usual podcast spaces. That takes that entire argument apart. Because I'm tired of having it. Because I know people in my own life that have bought into this so badly that they are living in constant fear over things that aren't even true. That aren't even possible and or plausible. But the left has you guys living in fear because Donald Trump is the next Hitler. Donald Trump is this. Donald Trump is that. Donald Trump is a terrible human being. Look, I've never met the man. But I can tell you from stories that I have seen that have come out over the years, he does a lot of things none of us are ever going to know about until people are willing to come out and talk about them. And they're not bad things. They're actual good things. Like loaning people money to start businesses and telling them when they were ready to pay it off to bring the money back to him and then tearing up the checks in front of them. I've heard multiple stories about that. It's your business now. Run it, do with it as you wish, and Godspeed. Doesn't sound like a narcissist to me. Doesn't sound like somebody that hates people to me. Donald Trump absolutely loves this country. And if you can't see that from everything that he is trying to do, because that's why the United Nations is pissed off at him, that's why Spain is pissed off at him, that's why UK is pissed off at him, because they were this close, man. They were this close to getting their new world order. And he's dismantling it from the inside out. And that's what he's doing. The part of this that nobody's talking about with Iran isn't just freeing Iran. We're talking about removing one of the biggest state sponsor of terrorism from the planet if we do this right. And it's a big if, but it was also a big swing. And I'm going to say this again as somebody that has been doing this now for, I know some of you are just finding this, but I've been doing this now for going on 20 years in one form or another. Whether it's writing articles, posting stuff on social media, eventually starting podcasts on places like Blog Talk Radio and moving over to Spreaker and then eventually moving into the video phase. I've been doing this now for 20 years in one form or another. I've had syndication deals. I've been on local radio here. There's all kinds of stuff that I've done. I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. I'm telling you that when I tell you these things, it's because I've been doing this for a long time and I do research for a living. That's how I make money. Is researching things and understanding them, part of which is history. And somebody asked earlier, why are they coming after us? I don't think they're in the chat anymore, but I'm going to go and answer the question anyway, because they might have missed me saying it in the first place. I'm not saying we haven't earned this, because if you go back to 1953, we started this. But at the same time, we started it for two reasons. One, our staunchest ally up until recently was afraid they were going to lose millions of dollars, which in today's economy would be billions, if not trillions of dollars, in the infrastructure they put in to start getting oil out of Iran when the newly elected prime minister decided that he was going to basically nationalize everything. Please see Venezuela if you don't know what I'm talking about, because they did that there too. Then, realizing that they were moving towards what could only be considered socialism, we got a little paranoid, because let's not forget, Nazis were socialists. I know, Hitler really wasn't a socialist. He just added that term to their name so that people would resonate with it. No, he was an actual avowed socialist, if not lending himself towards communism. But it's okay. But there's a common reason why nobody wants to believe that, and that's because we have, much like we used to have with maps versus a globe, we have this weird concept that there are 4 quadrants of political behavior. When in reality, it's actually more of a sphere of behavior. So when you go too far one way or the other, you basically wind up in the same place. So the alt-right and the alt-left, they're neither alt-right or alt-left, they're all together. Because they have basically the same ideas, the same concepts about how everything's supposed to be run. The only difference is they have different ideas of where their authoritarian flex should be. Then you have the standard far left and far right. Why are you asking me where Netanyahu is when you could simply look it up yourself? I don't care where Netanyahu is now. Anyway, sorry. I try to respond to the chat as much as possible, but if you guys are just going to come in and start asking random questions instead of following along with the topics for the day, then you might as well not be in my chat room. Because I don't do that. I do that more on Fridays. It's more of a free-for-all on Fridays. But on Mondays and Wednesdays, we stick to the topics most of the time. Unless I actually want to talk about what you're talking about, and I don't really care where Netanyahu is right now. All right, so we got to talk about this. This is just in from Amy Curtis, who is a contributor to our Weekend News Roundup. We used to work together at Twitchy before she went over to Town Hall, and she's been killing it since she went over to Town Hall. So this is just in from her. Just days after condemning Operation Epic Fury, Zoran Mondami's flip-flopped on Iran. Well, go figure. And yeah, I say just in. She put it out at about 6:30 my time this morning, but it's on my stack of stuff. So when Operation Epic Fury got underway on Saturday, New York Mayor Zoran the Kami Mamdani, who loves international law, condemned the strikes. Today's military strikes on Iran, carried out by the United States and Israel, mark a catastrophic escalation and an illegal war of aggression. Bombing cities, killing civilians, opening new theater of war. Americans do not want this. They do not want another war in pursuit of regime change. The problem is, ladies and gentlemen, this is not another war. This is an ongoing war. Iran has been officially at war with us since 1979. We just refused to pick up the gauntlet, really, until now. So this isn't a new war. They want relief from the affordability crisis, which if we weren't having to spend so much money trying to fend off terrorism, just saying. They want peace, and as we talked about last night, there is a huge difference between a peacemaker and a peacekeeper. In this paragraph, Zoran Mondami sounds a lot like a peacekeeper, somebody who wants to keep the peace, no matter what the cost, no matter who they have to grovel to, no matter who they have to shake hands with, no matter who they have to sail down the river. Peace matters above all. So he wrote this on X before reminding the Iranian diaspora in New York City that they were part of the fabric of this city. You are our neighbors, small business owners, students, artists, workers, community leaders. You will be safe here. Yeah, they were in New York because it wasn't safe for them to live in Iran. Duh. Thanks to the violent, repressive regime of the now deceased, because he's dead, Ayatollah Khomeini. The vast majority of Iranians in the West were thrilled with the strikes and the opportunity to liberate Iran from tyranny. In fact, and someone in Mondami's administration must have passed that memo along to him. Psst, here, boss, take this note. Because, and here we have the clip in just a second, he's singing a completely different tune now. So I guess he's figured out that the actual Iranian citizens are kind of completely okay with what's going on. Surprising him and apparently everybody else that doesn't understand how people work.
I've said before that the Iranian government has engaged in systematic repression of its own people, even killing thousands of Iranians who were seeking to express the most basic forms of dissent earlier this year. It is a brutal government.
Well, that's a 180. What happened, Mr. Kami? Did you figure out you were on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue again? Like most of you morons usually do? All right, so, well, I mean, to be quite honest, the Mexican cartels are... So somebody in the chat brought up the Mexican cartels. And I would simply like to point out that stuff is already pretty much underway. That wasn't my clip. I couldn't do anything to raise the voice up any more than it already was. That was actually that was that way on the source. I don't know why it was so much lower, but I tried. I jacked it up as much as I could. It didn't make any difference. But anyway, for those of you who were struggling to hear him, he basically pulled a complete 180 and started talking about how he knows how bad the regime was and how it victimized its own people, etc. But yeah, so I don't know why the volume on that was so much lower, because normally those sources are usually pretty reliable, but that one was off for some reason. All right, so let's see what else we've got going on here. Oh, dude, I swear, Fetterman's either going to have to change to an independent or something because he's about to get kicked out of his own party. This is again for Laney Curtis, and when it comes to Operation Epic Fury, John Fetterman is the only sane Democrat. And we've got a clip showcasing that in his customary hoodie, which I have to admit, everybody seemed to have a problem with that. I kind of never really did. As you can tell, most of the time when I do a show, I'm in t-shirts and stuff anyway. All right, so hang on. Let's get this queued up because I accidentally clicked the wrong button.
It's pretty toxic for a Democrat to say I happen to agree with the president on really anything at this point. But again, find someone that opposes this, saying they've all said we can never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb. Then what's your, and that seems like that's happening. Why can't you just acknowledge that's a good thing? Why not? Why can't? Why can't you just say that? It's like, this is 47 years. It's like sanctions and treaties and all kinds of other negotiations and everything. Nothing's worked, and that's the case. So why can't we all just say the world is safer and it's more just now because of what this happens? You don't have to agree on everything, but it's like, yes, I'm the only Democrat because I'm not afraid of my base to just say, you know what, this was overall a good thing. You don't have to agree on everything. So I'm going to be honest. So, why can't you just acknowledge that one of the most evil people on the face of the earth was erased? That's a good thing.
So there you have it again. John Fetterman being the sane voice of the Democratic Party. Who had that on their 2026 bingo card? Because I was not me. And I've been saying this a lot lately. I almost feel bad for making fun of him during his primary. Just being honest, because he's been... Now, again, we are... I used to say 80-20. I think, honestly, at this point, it might be closer to 70-30 that we disagree on, because he's come out on some other things, and I'm like, that surprised me. But again, we disagree a lot. But when he's telling people the truth, when he's being honest... I will support what he's doing. And the thing about it is, whether you like the man or not, he's at least earned the right to sit down and have conversations because he's willing to listen and willing to try to understand. Right? All right, so that's going on the screen. Because in this day and age, I never thought I would see this. But yes, we have a normal Democrat. And again, I disagree with him a lot. But I would still be willing to sit down and have a discussion with him because he's not a raving fucking lunatic. He's not. We got to get back to that. And for those of you that are blaming the right, you're blaming the wrong people. Because you know when this divide started, you know when this inability for the sides to communicate with one another started, it was during the Reagan era. Because the Democrats went to President Reagan and they said, all right, so we really need to do something about this immigration mess, but the easiest way to do it is just to do amnesty first for everybody who's here, and then we will sit down and we will hammer out how to fix our immigration system once we have a clean slate and we can start from there. And you know what happened? Reagan took them at their word. And it was one of the biggest mistakes he made in his term. I'd say one of, because even though he's a hero of mine, there were a few, but that was one of his biggest ones. Because just like Lucy and Charlie Brown with the football, they took the football away at the last minute and took the victory lap. And we've ran with it ever since. Nobody seems to understand that before this time frame, before this happened, Congress could have used to congregate together all the time. They didn't have separate lunchrooms. They didn't have all this separation. But they started separating from one another because one party felt completely robbed by the other one. And ever since that point, the Democrats don't negotiate on anything. If you don't believe me, look at what's happening with the DHS funding right now. They are using ICE as an excuse to not fund DHS unless they get everything that they want. That is not a negotiation. And the irony of this is, ICE is already funded. So who are they hurting now? TSA doesn't get their paychecks. Air traffic controllers aren't going to be getting their paychecks. The folks that work to keep bad people from getting in here, now that we do have to worry about possible terror attacks, aren't getting paychecks. So again, what side are the Democrats on? Because I don't understand that. And I know I've said this a lot today, but I'm going to say it again. What I don't understand is there used to be a time when party lines disappeared, and that was normally once bombs started dropping. There may have been public disagreements about how we got there. There may have been public disagreements about whether we should stay there, but there was never the leader of the lower house minority party outwardly saying that he hopes we lose. That is not something that I thought I would ever see. It's not something I thought I would ever see. This is how far gone our Democratic Party is today and how divorced they are from reality. They don't care what happens to me and you. They only care about being able to hold on to their political power. That's it. And they're willing to do whatever they have to do it, including making your life and my life less safe. The same people that are screaming about affordability now that inflation is down around 2.8, 2.9%, had absolutely nothing to say when it was at 9%. And I'm not making any bones about it with you today. Real inflation is probably somewhere closer to 10% today. You know what real inflation was probably at when we were claiming 9%? Probably somewhere between 20 to 25%. But things are still moving in the right direction. Yes, there has been a spike in gas prices because of what's going on with the Straits of Hormuz. But you know what? As Barack Obama once put it, if Americans have to pay a little bit more for their gas to keep polar bears safe and to keep the ice caps from melting, they're okay with that. You know what I'm okay with? Maybe paying a little bit more for gas for a few months to bring freedom to hundreds of thousands of people in a country that have been oppressed for 47 years by a regime who has been attacking us by themselves and through proxies for 47 years, and finally bringing an end to this mess. I'm okay with that. If I have to pay a little bit extra for a while, then I'm going to be okay with that. Yeah, you know, that's not a bad point. It's not, well, the problem, and so hang on, let me put this up on the screen so people know what I'm addressing. Because you are making a valid point, and based on the conversation that we're having, so thank you. The truth is that the Democrats don't always disagree with the Republicans, it's that they disagree with Trump. Whatever he does, they have to go against it. See, that is honestly about 80% right. Because the other thing that nobody really talks about is most of the time when Republicans and Democrats come together and agree on things, it's like Thomas Massey and the other guy. Rokana. Yeah, it took me a second. I wanted to say Okamba, but that's a sci-fi race, not a name. But yeah, so they can agree, but normally when they agree, we usually find out that they're part of the establishment folks trying to do things that we don't really want behind the scenes, or not actually doing the things that we need them to do. All right, so we've got one last break that we've got to take because I have got to get a cough drop. For those of you that are new around here, I have been not feeling well for a while. I'm actually starting to recover. Not that the newbies really care, but if you're wondering why I'm taking longer breaks than average, that's part of it. But I have started putting together our own music so that you guys don't always have to hear our sponsors and stuff. But I guess I should talk about at least one of them while I get this queued up. I want to talk to you about our friends over at Freedom Chat. So for those of you who like your privacy, might I encourage you to check out Freedom Chat. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Freedom Chat is an app similar to WhatsApp and Signal. The difference is you have full control of your information over there. So as an example, if our administration had Freedom Chat as opposed to Signal, that whole debacle that everybody was like up in arms about for the longest time, would have never been a thing because it wouldn't have mattered. But yeah, so there's that. All right, so we're going to take a quick break as soon as I make sure I've got the right thing queued up. This is available. This is from our KLON Radio House Band. It is available on Spotify, YouTube Music, etc. So if you like it, go find it, make it your own. We're completely cool with that. We'll be right back. My name is Rick Robinson. This is my show, and it's Wednesday. So for those of you working for the weekend, you are halfway there. All right, be right back.
He's for an oath to make a difference. Ran for danger while others turned away. Now it seems the world's against him, and no one knows quite what to say. Live the life and follow the path forged in fire. Burning bright through the darkest night. Though the world may turn its back on him, he still stands. Won't lose the fight. He walked through fire with no applause. Carried burdens that nobody saw. Judgmental words and glares that wound. A price has been paid that few can understand. Live the life and follow the path forged in fire. Burn bright through the darkest night. Though the world former but current member of law enforcement. Thank you.
One of my boards is not playing nicely with the others. Anyway, we are back for the final segment of the Rick Robinson Show, the Wednesday edition, Chatline Saturday edition, almost the weekend edition, whatever the hell you want to call this thing. We're here. We're live. Want to give a quick shout out to everybody hanging out in the chat. Looks like most of you are from YouTube today. Usually we have a bigger X audience, but we got a lot over there too, but nobody wants to chat. Any YouTubers are scaring them away. Anyway, so we're back. We're live, and we gotta talk about this next. So hang on, let me get this queued up. For you leftists out there that still want to think that you're on the right side, pay attention to this. Well, hang on, maybe. Did I? No, I didn't mute it. Oh, wait, there we go. All right, let me try this again.
I am an Iranian who lives in Tehran, and I can hear the sound of bombing outside. In case I'm dead tomorrow, I just want you to remember this. Please, shut the fuck up and don't use me against America or Israel to try and convince them to stop. We ask for this. We want this attack. And I know that you don't want to listen to us. You don't want to listen, but I'm going to give you the shorter version of why we want this. The reason is we had one option, to go and protest this bloody regime, and we did, and they killed 40,000 of us in 2 days. This is the last option we have. We ask for the help, and help is here. And I know I might die, and I don't care, because I'm willing to sacrifice my life for Iran. And you, just shut the fuck up and don't use me to attack anyone or try to stop this. We want this. You don't understand. You're not in our shoes, so shut the fuck up. That was a message from one of our Iranian sisters, and she asked me to share this with you. So shut the fuck up. Yeah, if you don't want to support us, just shut the fuck up.
Seems pretty simple and straightforward to me. If you don't want to support what's being done in Iran, then just shut the fuck up. How about you have a nice hot cup of shut the fuck up there? Let's make it a little more palatable. Because I really have been trying to work on my language lately, but these people drive me insane. And there's a reason I have a disclaimer at the beginning of most of my shows for that very reason. But look, the simple fact of the matter is these people have been begging us for help. They have tried to rise up multiple times and then kept waiting for us to come in, and then we never did. And now we are. So what happens next when we finish is going to be up to them. And I've said this before, for everybody who thinks, well, this is going to be a long, drawn-out, protracted war, and America's going to have boots on the ground forever. You know what? I really don't think so this time. Because one, that's not how Donald Trump rolls. And two, we don't need to be the one doing the nation building anyway. Why not let Israel do it? We've already seen that Israeli and Iranian people can get along really well. So why not let Israel do it? They're their neighbors. They understand more about their cultural norms than we do. That's part of what keeps getting us in trouble with these people. Because everything that we think from a Western perspective that will make them love us and hug us and call us George shows them nothing but weakness. And they exploit that weakness every single time. These people only respond to strength. Their culture is not the same as your culture and my culture, unless you're part of that culture. And if you are, then feel free to chime in. Because they only recognize one thing, and it's strength, and we have not been projecting that for a long time. I'm going to be honest, when they captured all those hostages in 79, and then we didn't do anything, that was a win for them. Because it was. Because they showed the world they were able to stand up to us. They were able to keep our people hostage for 444 days. And then as soon as Reagan came in, they were like, oh shit, we better give them back. And they did. And for some reason, that was enough for everybody. Everybody was like, okay, we got our hostages back. We're done. No. No. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this is supposed to work. And that's what the rest of the world is now finding out the hard way. Don't mess with us. Because if you even think about messing with us, we're going to own you. And for everybody who's wringing their hands, and for everybody who's, oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this, and this is the beginning of World War III. Look, if we're going to be completely honest, we've probably been in World War III now for a while. Because look at everything that's going on. So we might as well just put that part of it to bed. Because we're in World War III right now. We have been for a long time. We honestly have been in the beginnings of World War III ever since Russia invaded Crimea. But nobody wanted to talk about that back then. Because even when Mitt Romney was like, Russia is one of our greatest geopolitical adversaries, the Obama camp during the campaign got almost a bigger applause line than Reagan when he said, hey, the 1980s probably want their foreign policy back. But he wasn't wrong. Romney was the wrong man for the job, but he wasn't wrong about this. And he never has been. Russia was a big problem. The only reason Russia is not as big of a problem today is because they have been in a lot worse financial shape than any of us knew until now. Same thing with China. China is having a population implosion. COVID wiped them out to a greater extent than they ever let anybody know. I think the same thing probably happened in Russia, which is one of the reasons why they have been saber-rattling and trying to go find both Russian DNA and Chinese DNA to push back into their mixes. Because their populations are declining. To the point where if something doesn't change within 10 years, neither one of those countries is really going to exist anymore. And we now know that. And China has positioned themselves as a superpower. And yet, both times we've gone up against their technology in the last 6 months, we have owned their asses. I'm not saying that to be cocky, I'm saying it's the truth. Maduro is using Russian and Chinese weaponry. Iran is using Russian and Chinese weaponry. We are chewing them up and spitting them out at a pace that nobody thought possible. While the left is saying, oh, look how dejected Donald Trump is. He thought this was going to be over in 5 minutes. No, he's been telling everybody from the beginning. It could go on for a few days, could go on for a few weeks. I think it's going to be closer to a few weeks before they soften things up enough where Israelis and maybe some other militia groups are going to go in and start polishing everybody off. Then what happens next will be up to the Iranian people. All right, so here's a clip from, looks like about 4 hours ago. This is, looks like, again, Tehran, in the middle of the day, again, I might add, but watch this. This is how you know things are not going as well as the Iranian talking heads want you to think.
What? از اینجا میاد اینجا. What?
So again, that's happening in broad daylight in Tehran today. All right. let's see what else we can get into real quick as we start winding things down. I hear some of you complaining, or see some of you complaining about my microphone. All my levels are coming through fine, so I'm going to have to listen to the video later and see if I can figure out what's happening. So, I don't know. Let's see. All right, so this is from our very own Brad Slager from Red State, who contributes here on KLRM Radio as well. 3 shows a week? Anyway, so let's take a look at all this here. And it looks like there's no clips in this one, so just give me a second. So the idea that the press in this country would be upset over the attacks on Iran's leadership was a given, but seeing the work being done to undercut the effort and cut down domestic support is particularly pernicious. One of the methods seen has been the claim that the Republican base is divided over Operation Epic Fury. This appears to be a case of insistence over evidence. Numerous polls have been conducted that not only show strong backing for the effort, but also show numbers that are close to uniform across pollsters. CBS poll, 85% of Republicans support the president's strikes on Iran. Fox News poll, 84% of Republicans support strikes on Iran. Washington Post poll, 81% of Republicans support strikes on Iran. Reuters Ipsos, 82% of Republicans support strikes on Iran. For a telling example of reflexive opposition to this administration, we present William Kristol. Yes, yeah, I know, that guy. He has devoted himself to self-humiliation and has devolved into a bumbling parody of himself. But Billy does demonstrate the manner in which so many in the press just default to automatic opposition to the actions of President Trump, regardless of the merits of those actions. And it bears nothing, regardless of positions, those same critics have previously held. As Strife covered this week, the entire reason for a joint mission with Israel to neutralize Iran's strike capabilities was its leadership displaying a bold insistence that it would soon be nuclear capable. In meetings meant to shut down its missile rattling, the leadership instead told the U.S. they were storming full speed ahead. Bill Kristol, prior to becoming afflicted with Trump derangement syndrome, had been among those declaring that preventing Iran from getting nukes was a priority. Now again, we all know Bill has completely abandoned all pretense of his past conservative positions. That he previously was the force of the Weekly Standard is quite ironic given how he pitched his standards over the transom because of one man. But today he exemplifies the wireless media criticism of President Trump regardless of the common sense in play, and this does not involve rooting through the archives of his past periodical. This is what Kristol had to say after this weekend's strikes in Iran. Maybe Rubio should stop inventing imminent threats to justify the war his administration started and get to work doing his department's job of helping Americans in the war zone they created. So the problem is, this is Bill Kristol from just a little less than 2 months ago. The Trump administration should be hoping the brave people of Iran overthrow a cruel and terror-sponsoring dictatorship rather than threatening our democracy ally Denmark. But that would require that the administration would both support American interests and principles. That was in January. This was January 8th, 2026. So, yeah, it took a little over a couple months to get there, but we're now doing what he said we should have been doing, but now we're doing what we said we should have been doing. It's not enough, and it's not good enough, and it doesn't matter because it's Trump. Because everything is always all about Trump with these people. Exactly. The Iranian people desperately want to be free from this regime, and they've only been trying to tell us that now for decades. And again, over and over and over again, we come to these people and we wait for them to do these things like actively protesting and actively trying to see what they can do to get rid of this dictatorship that they found themselves under. And we kept telling them, if you rise up, we'll help you. If you rise up, we'll help you. If you rise up, we'll help you. But we never did. And now we are. And now that we are, it's bad because it's Trump doing it. You can't win for losing with these people. But anyway, so that's come to the end of my notes and my prepared material for today. I hope you guys, for those of you who are new, if you were having issues on your side, I apologize. Everything is coming through 5x5 on my end. I even turned it on my phone a second ago just to double check, and I could hear everything just fine, so I don't know. But we're going to get out of here. I'll be back later tonight starting at 7 p.m. Eastern for our Friends with Inquiry, hosted by Stephen L. Hall. I think he will have a guest inquisitor today posing his questions. Then after that, that's 7 p.m. Eastern. After that, at 8 p.m. Eastern, we have a Conservative Curmudgeon radio show. 8 p.m. Eastern, we'll be heading over to our friends at Buffoon of the Week for Behind Enemy Lines Radio, hosted by Gene Baradelli and Ross Galloway. And then after that, we'll be back over here for Rick and Orty. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern. And then our final show for the night, which will be a live simulcast, will be from our friends over at SHR Media, Sean Lewis and the Edge of Liberty. And then that'll be when we'll shut things down for the night. And then I'll be back tomorrow night for Jen and Rick. And then back Friday, doing the usual Friday edition of this show, the Weekend News Roundup. So this show's at noon, Weekend News Roundup is at 3. And then He Said, She Said at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. But we're going to get out of here. Want to thank everybody for taking the time to hang out with us today. And we'll be back before you know it. Bye, everybody.
To the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show, where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From D.C. to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got the clout. Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel. He's breaking down the noise, cutting through the lies.
Say goodnight, Gracie.